Just go eat. I see it.
Yep. Donna.
Come on, come here.
Yeah, no, I got a quick Zoom session. I got it. Donna, can you hear me? Hello? Miss Johnson. Miss Johnson. Miss Johnson. Hello?
Hello.
Hello. Hold up.
How are you, darling?
The question is, how are you? Hold up. Let me switch up. How are
Hey.
you? What's good?
Good. Chilling.
Yeah, you look like you're chilling right now.
Hey.
How's it going?
Everything's good. I'm happy to be on Breaky Break.
Happy is an understatement. The nieces. Look, I'm hopping in the car. I forgot I had a nephew appointment. So let me hold up. I'm hopping in the car. And hold up. I gotta set this up in the car.
Okay.
What's good and popping with you?
Nothing. I just came back from visiting my daughter in college. Hence the reason why I'm in the bed after driving back.
Wait, so this is what, senior year, right? No, actually.
No, she transferred, so she's actually a sophomore. So she'll be behind 1 year.
Oh, okay. So
She went in undecided, and then she decided on a major, so she had to transfer because the school she was at didn't have that major. And so she's about a year behind.
A year behind is nothing in the macro scheme of things, right?
Nah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I didn't make her feel like she had to be done in 4 or whatever. I want her to do what she wants to do. And, she's of that generation where they don't play them kind of games where they just go on to work. They do what they want to do. So that's good though. So it works out. It worked out.
Awesome. Wait, where's she going?
She's at Albright College in Pennsylvania, studying Bachelor Merchandising and Design.
Wait, is that the actual major or is, wow, that's a niche. So that's unique. Is it a institute that specifically deals in that industry?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
That's why she had to transfer. She would have stayed at her previous school, but they didn't have that major at all.
What was her previous school? What was her previous?
She was at Jacksonville University in Florida.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
she loved it there. Beautiful campus, good school, and stuff. But she really hates Albright, but that's her major, so she's sticking it out.
That's unique. Now, how much motherly versus sisterly advice did you give her?
I told her that I would help her with the first 2 years, and her father would do the other 2 in terms of paying for it. Because I still have school loans anyway, so I just figured she'd throw hers right on my pile instead of coming out with a bunch of debt. Yeah. And then I like that Albright is closer because I could just get in the car. It was when she was there, she was at Jacksonville when the plague hit, and so I had to fly in April. Remember?
Wait, did you just say the plague?
In March.
Did you say the plague?
The plague hit. So when we got out in March, she called me April and said, everybody's leaving. We got to get out of here. So I had to ship all her stuff. It was like $200 worth of crap in boxes we had to ship, and then everything else went on a flight. And so that was a lot more difficult and challenging to do. Especially since that was still early and we didn't know how this thing was really spreading. And we were in that, planes, you get sick all the time from planes. So I was glad that she moved up closer.
Oh, awesome. Well, kudos. So 2 out of the crib.
Oh, no, nobody's left the crib.
No. But I'm
Nobody's
saying,
gone.
hey, look, that's 2 out of the crib, meaning even if it's paper wise, on paper, 2 out of the
Yes,
crib.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's a blessing. Kudos to you.
Thanks. How's everybody on your end?
Hey, look, they're alive. They haven't left the crib yet, but yeah, in the same boat. They're working,
Okay,
they're going to school. That's all you can ask for.
that's right.
Yeah,
Productive citizens.
exactly. Look, compared to Brother Trump and Brother Biden, they're in a good situation.
Yeah, tis true. So what's this about? What you got me doing?
All right, so look, this is a pet project that I started a while back, and I was like, look through your circle and try and capture as much in terms of life stories as possible, because each individual has their own unique life story, and on top of it, the potential impact. So imagine your legacy. You can't translate it in a real way when you have the conversations that you have with your daughters. But if you tell your story, your particular story, and a narrative that you control, maybe at some point when you share that with them, that there's some sort of I don't know, control and information that could be passed to them. That was the basis that it came from. And it worked with a few other people. I started with the old folks, and then I started with some people back home, and it resonated. And then I expanded it out to a few other people, and it worked out. And I was like, okay, you know what? Just throw this out to anybody in your circle, and let's see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where it came from. And so I appreciate you, and just know this. All of it, this is your life story, and this is something that at some point you'll share with them, and let's see what happens.
Okay. I don't know if there's anything left I haven't shared, but we'll
No,
see.
yeah, but I think a lot of the time we do sharing, specifically in our profession and as parents, it, we share things when the time sort of suits it.
Comes up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so it doesn't necessarily resonate as much as, hey, what is your life like? Nobody knows your life story, and nobody has access to it at any point. So if at least you control that narrative, they know, hey, look, this is what Donna went through when she was a kid, or this is what Donna went through when she was in high school. This is what Donna went through when she was in college. This is what Donna went through when she was in, relationships. So that's sort of the narrative, talking, us being able to control the narrative and the technology. Look, the last couple of years, technology has allowed us to be able to, just capture that info. And I didn't want to miss out on that and let somebody else sort of, I don't know. I just saw the opportunity, and you're like, okay, at least you can control your legacy in terms of your information, and also society can see, hey, Donna Johnson, this is her life. And at some point, if you're willing to openly share it, that's going to be something that resonates with, even if it's one person, 2 people, 3 people, 1,000 people, they're going to be able to have access to that info. That's all. That's where
Okay.
it came from. So let's do the sort of the grunge scenario. All right. Who are you?
I am First off, my name is no longer Johnson.
What?
I got divorced at the end of last month. So I am Donna Moore, Moore. I have to spend next week starting to change some things in my my documents and stuff.
Wait, okay. Now, I'm gonna have to go back and edit this damn shit. All right, well, but because literally, Donna, reason why I'm not home is I'm actually my cousin is going through a divorce, and it was out of the blue. He's got to be out by the 15th. Again, I'm relaying personal info that was not expected out of the blue, and he was like, "Yo, I need you guys, so on and so forth. Come talk to me. I need to hear this out." So he's literally this. It's interesting that you're at this point, and yeah. So all right. So this is just for us, but all right. Back. What the hell? All right, go
I
ahead.
know, right? So I just found out about a year ago, Easter weekend, that my husband had been unfaithful for a number of years. And I gave him 2 weeks to move. He left. We had a very amicable divorce, even though he says he didn't really want to do that, and claims to be innocent of, but I have evidence, so it's not like I could believe him. And so we separated, and we're on speaking terms and such, but the pain was very real, and so I haven't been able to talk to him quite a bit, or even see him, because the pain is very real. So I'm going through a course at my church right now to kind of deal with that, and I have a therapist and stuff. So
Are you joining the therapy club? Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
had to be there. But like I know I'm starting like toward the end. I'm supposed to be starting in the beginning, but I got diagnosed with breast cancer, and right after we left school, when the pandemic hit. And so that year, I went through 2 surgeries, and now I'm on a long-term treatment. It was stage 1, so I'm fine. But it's just a long-term backup to make sure that they didn't miss anything. And then within a year of that is when I found out what was going on with my husband. So it's like a back-to-back traumatic experience. So I had to get team therapy in to get my head together and be able to function. It was very debilitating, both of those happening back to back. And so they have been very helpful to me.
So you started therapy wait, can you backtrack in terms of
post surgery?
Okay. And then when did you find out about the infidelity?
A year, almost to the date after I got my initial diagnosis.
Wow. So 1 year after. So, and then how long was again, Donna, this part now this doesn't go anywhere, but how far before you were diagnosed was the infidelity happening?
The documentation I have is 7 years.
7?
1/3 of our marriage.
Wow. And was this with somebody that again, this is
no,
me.
this was no. I would probably feel better about it if it was one specific person that he had his feelings for. He's just on websites, with random folks within a pseudonym and all of that. It's not it wasn't even like a person, I don't love you anymore, so I fell in love with this person and I'm gonna go be with them. It's not even that. It's like you go do stuff and, like you're a single person and then you come home. It's not, you know what I mean? It wasn't even a set relationship. They were just women on sites, and I found the sites and I found the messages.
Gee,
Yeah. And they went as far back as 2014.
damn.
Yeah.
And
So if
and
I and I'm not one of those women that goes through my husband's phone or his computer and all, because I don't live like that. I'm either
yeah,
gonna
no,
shut the phone, I'll live my
yeah,
own world. And
yeah.
so, you walk in a room and a person jumps because they're on the phone and they don't, you know what I mean? They didn't expect you to come up and they're on something that they're not supposed to be. So I said, okay, now I gotta get in the phone because something's going on. Yeah. So
So so in terms of what set off the bells, that you those
that set off the bell.
okay, all right.
Yeah, because there was no change in schedule. There was no money missing. There was nothing that would normally say something is happening because he came home same time. You know, there was no change in the
So there's
schedule.
no change to a routine, and there was
Right,
no change in terms of behavior or anything of that sort.
right.
This was
I mean, outside. I mean, he had grown a little distant, but that happens after you've been married for years.
yeah. This
You know, that
that's
happens.
normal. Yeah, exactly.
And you work on it and all that. And I thought we were working on it. We had started a book together and we were talking about, we know the kids are going to be leaving soon. So we can't be in this house as roommates when they leave. And so we were working on things. And then that's when I found out what was happening. And so that pretty much ended that because that was what do they call it? That was a line I couldn't cross it. I mean, I couldn't come back from that. I
So,
don't trust him, so
so during what you're going through physically,
Mhm.
uh, you're saying you were running through that alone?
No, he was here because I didn't know while I was getting my surgeries and all that other stuff. He was here.
Okay.
He was.
So at least
I
for
mean,
the physical.
he was physically here.
Okay. Yeah,
He
yeah,
was
yeah.
physically here. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was part of the whole distant, less, what's going on in your head and all of that. I guess it became a little bit more amplified when I got sick, that there was definitely something amiss. But infidelity was not on my radar because, again, there was nothing that had changed in his habits or anything. So, and it didn't change because it's probably going on for so long. He had a rhythm. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You just slapped me in the face, woman.
I didn't mean to.
You know, you
Yeah,
know.
but I mean, like for the reference, I am changing my name. I'm taking my name back. So that's why I started with that.
So Donna Moore, Donna Moore, Donna Moore.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Own it. That's a beautiful thing. All right. So, well, let me start off with asking, how are you feeling right now?
Oh, right now I'm good. I'm good. I have moments that I'm not sleeping because I still kind of roll things, you know, what could I have seen and that kind of thing. What did I miss? Why didn't I pick up on this a little earlier? And so I'll wake up at like 4 a.m. with that on my head. But it used to happen like when I found out I didn't sleep for like days, weeks at a time. It was just constantly a thought in my head, like, how did this happen? How did we get here? But now it's and everybody that I know that's divorced said the same thing, that it gets easier. And it has gotten really easier. And my therapist has been very helpful in helping me redirect my thoughts. And um, I have apps and things and lavender and all kinds of stuff to help me sleep. So um within a month or two, I was able to start really get my pattern of sleeping back. But every once in a while, I get a night where, I'm thinking about it and I'll be up. And but other than that, it's getting. I enjoy my own company, so I don't feel like the loneliness. I have that as a group of my church called Divorce Care that I joined. So it's a bunch of other women who are dealing with the same thing, and having that community has been very helpful with perspective. I just don't want to be a really bitter person. I don't want to hate him. I don't want to be bitter. I don't want to feel like everybody is him. And so that's the thing I have to constantly fight against.
I mean, hey, and nothing I can say, Donna. So that part, yeah,
Yeah.
nothing. Wow. Okay, let me internalize that for a second. All right.
Okay. I'm
and
sorry. It's a lot.
no. What do you mean?
15 minutes of
No,
talking.
no, it's look. This is realness. This is not. That's the whole idea here. There's no script. There's no what's the name. This is life. And yeah. I mean, this is life. So there's no script to life. I mean, and considering your life, I mean, it's an unreal life that you have lived. So, I mean, this is just another sort of chapter in that life. So, yeah, it is what it is.
Okay.
All right, so let's jump into it. So, your earliest cogent memories. Yeah, let's start with that.
Guess I was about 3, maybe 3 or 4 are my earliest memories. Used to get babysat by a friend of my mother. She would pay her to watch me because I couldn't go to school yet until I was 4. So it had to be 3. It had to be about 3. And so, just going to her house, and sometime her son was there, which was my brother's best friend. And she would do hair in the kitchen and, things like that. It was, back in the day.
Your mom would do hair in the kitchen.
No, the babysitter.
Oh, the baby. Okay.
Yeah, she would do hair in the kitchen, and she made money. She was a housewife, and she had married an older man and had kids with him. And he was significantly older than her. And so since she was home, she would watch some of the, some kids or whatever. And I was one of them. And so that was like basically when I was 3, and then that summer before I went to school. And I remember always wanting to go to school. I was one of those kids that's like, I want to get on the little yellow bus and I wanted to go to school because it seems like them kids, they have the little books and stuff. Everybody's having a good time, right? And I always liked school. To this day, I like learning. So, it's something that came from even when I was that young. I do remember always liking learning, always being very curious about things. And so when I finally got to go, it was the best thing ever. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to school. Everybody's going to school. I'm going to school too, And so I went to, I grew up here. So I went to Margaret Brent Elementary, and my mother had lived, she used to move, which at the time I didn't really understand why, but she used to move at the cheapest apartment she could find in a neighborhood with a good school. Mm-hmm. And so, because she was a librarian at the Enid Pratt Free Library, and at that time there was no library science degree. There was not. You just applied and you get a job, and they paid you next to nothing. By the time I was 16, my mother passed away and she was making $11,000 a year.
Wow.
And even then, that was crazy. Even then, and that was in 1985. That was just unreal. But so she's a single mother. I'm the product of a affair. And so my father and mother knew each other for years. And they had my brother, not my oldest brother. My mother was married to a man in New York and he was abusive. So she came down here because my grandfather and some of my relatives were in Baltimore. And so she met him. My dad had my second brother. And then 7 years later, had me. In between those 7 years, he got married to somebody else. So I have some siblings that are between the two of us.
So was he married to your mom or?
Mm-mm,
Okay.
mm-mm. So the story goes, and I'm getting some, I just connected with his side of the family, which is a whole nother issue. But the story goes that she used to go back and forth to New York to work because there just wasn't jobs here. This was before she became a librarian. And so she would work in New York Monday through Friday and then come home on the weekends. And my grandfather watched my older brother, my older brother. And then my other older brother from my father was with his mother. And so what ended up happening is that his mother decided she wanted to keep David, which was my second brother. And so she threatened to take her to court as an unfit parent if she didn't leave him with her. And so in order to not, this happened actually, I was here. I was already on the earth, I think, at this point. She didn't want to, either I was, or it gets a little sketchy because my mom's not even here for me to ask her. Either I was just born or I had not been born yet. And she didn't want to lose my older brother too. So she just let him stay with my father's mother. Also, another piece of this story is that he got married because he thought she went back to New York to be with her first husband, which was from my older brother's father.
Wait, so is this, are you saying that he got married because he thought your mom went to New York?
Yeah. My dad got married to a woman, which is the reason why they weren't together for that period of time or whatever. He got married to some woman that he met. And I don't know if he got her pregnant or what was going on with that, but he got married to a woman because he supposedly thought my mother went to New York to get back with her ex-husband, who was my older brother's father.
Okay.
So she comes back, finds out that the man she's seeing at the time is married to somebody now. And so, of course, that breaks them up. But periodically, he was always, at our place until 7 years later, here I come. Right. So he ended up cheating on his wife with my mom. And so, like, recently, his side of the family, I didn't have any idea about this, but they always knew I existed. I thought I was a secret because I didn't have any contact with them. And so I found out that they always knew I was here because they were always with David. David was with that side of the family. My older brother Damon used to be over there all the time because they were, since they're brothers, they kept them together all the time. And so all this time they knew I existed. I knew nothing about it. I just thought this whole family never knew I was here and just live with it. Right. And then find out at 52 that they always knew I was here. I'm like, well, why are y'all just reaching out to me at 52? I mean, I lived my whole life with my mom's side of the family. I really didn't need you people at this point, whatever. But you know, that's the thing is when nobody's around that you can ask, because everybody that was there at that time, my father, his sisters, my mom, none of them could really shed light on it. And the one aunt that I have is my mom's sister, who could kind of clear it up a little bit, is a pathological liar. So we can't trust anything she says. And her, I mean, she's the oldest. She is what is she? 10 months younger than my mom. That's how close they are in birthdays. And so she was there for just about everything. And we can't trust anything she says because she lies all the time. She lies so much. And so so I don't know the accuracy of all of it, but these are the stories that have been passed down that I have heard over my lifetime, even when I was a kid, that's what was, transpiring up, that there was some mistaken understanding of what my mom was doing in New York, and out of some broken heart or whatever, or rebound, he ended up with this woman, right? That may not even be the case, but who knows? Can't ask him. And so I come along, and she decides to not have him have any like real contact with me, in terms of, she doesn't try to get child support. She's so afraid that they're going to take another kid, right? That and she was waiting for this one girl because she had two boys. And so she didn't, my father never paid a dime of child support. She did everything by herself. Now, meanwhile, I knew he was my father because he still was tipping over there to the house. I knew who he was, and I had sense enough to know that he wasn't there to see me, right? Because I'm not stupid. So, that was the whole thing with that. So I never really had any real attachment to him or to any of his family members because of that. I was like, they don't consider me a person, and so I grew up my whole life with just my mom's family. And so those are the earliest memories I have of that whole situation that took place. Now my older brother, because he was, children are in the room, they were to be seen, not heard. And so you hear a little bit here and a little bit there. And he tries to help me have a better perspective on him. My cousin, which is my father's niece, is trying to give me a better perspective. But it's a little too late for that. All I got is what I got at that point. Yeah, that's all I got. So I don't, they're trying to change my thoughts on him. And God bless him, but it's really, this is all I know.
So going back to your earliest memories again, so stochastically speaking, what do you remember early on? So first, let's do something as simple as, what's your earliest memory that you have, period? Just period. What do you remember? And hopefully it's what I would like is, what's your earliest happiest memory that you remember?
Okay.
Think about it for a second if you haven't thought.
My earliest happiest memory. Let me see. It really is shrouded in something that's negative, but it's happy because that's when I realized my mother had my back. My babysitter's son used to put his hands on me, and I told her, and she went to that house and she threatened to put that boy in the ground. And I could hear it in the other room. She was talking to the boy's mother. And I knew that moment I could trust her with my life. And I don't know if children ever waver in that kind of thing when it comes to parents, but I knew from that moment on that woman she would go to the rug for me, And so that was one of my happiest memories, because as I grew up with her, even when she made mistakes and, you know, whatever, it was the getting that memory, it was so ingrained and solid in my head that my mother could pretty much do no wrong. After that, you know, she could pretty much do no wrong because I knew she had me. And
How
I
old
mean,
were,
she's right.
if you don't mind me asking, roughly how old do you think you were at that point? Where
I
you
was
had,
3. I was
oh,
3.
okay,
Yeah. It was right before I went to school.
okay,
Yeah.
all right,
So,
all
and
right.
you know, like kids, when things like that happen and they say something, they wait to see what the reaction is going to be. Or is there something going to be some repercussions? Am I going to get the repercussions? Or, because that, you know, people who put their hands on you and stuff, they always talking about how you can't say nothing and da da da. And because you're going to get in trouble. And so when a child decides to tell, and they wait for the repercussion. What's going to happen? Is something going to happen to me? Is something going to happen to them? And so when something happened to him, then I knew I could trust him. And so that's one of my. It's not the fondest memory I have of her, but that's the youngest of.
Oh,
That's, I mean, that I remember of anything when it comes to me and her. And everything else is just a bunch of pictures, but I don't have the actual memories younger than that, than 3.
okay. So let's use that as the springboard. So going from that point forth, what do you remember from that era going forward? Like what specifically, who lived in your house from at that point? Who did you relate to? You know, like what are the things that you remember at that stage going forward?
Um, I remember, so it was my mom and my grandpa who lived with us. Um, my grandfather always lived with us. I don't remember a time when he didn't live with us. And then my older brother. So it was the 4 of us in our apartment in East Baltimore. And my grandfather um, he used to work at a deli that was literally across the street, like from us. And he would always bring me bags of candy. That's when candy, you know, the penny candy situation was actually a penny candy. It was like, that's what it was. And
It was 1 cent at that
it
point.
was literally 1 cent, and you could like 15 cents and you had a bag, you know, and pickles and, you know, luncheon meat and stuff, because he worked in the deli portion. You know how like we have Korean stores now? Well,
Yeah,
they used to be
yeah.
my wife. So, and the owner hired my grandfather to work back there with him. And so my grandfather was like my dad in all extents. I adored this man. And my brother, same way. We adored him. He was Pop Pop, and he was, you know, the light of our lives. And for years, I did not understand why my mother couldn't stand him. I was like, why she don't like him? This is her dad. Why does she don't like him? I'll get into that story later. But I'm telling you, when you asked me to do this, I said he don't got a clue what he about to get into. But and so those memories of being a child, I lived on 25th Street between Barclay and Guilford. I don't know if you're familiar with that
Yeah,
part.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Okay. So, you know, 25th Street is huge, especially
Mhm.
for a little kid to cross. And so there's so many times I almost got hit crossing the street trying to get over there to the store, which was right at the corner of 25th and Barclay. And so all our friends, I had lots of kid friends. We would play up and down the street. My grandfather and I, every summer, we dug up the bottoms of the trees and planted flowers. And he showed me how to plant flowers there. And the neighbors would always love how all the, you know, as you walk down the street, all these flower beds were all up and down the street. It was just like, maybe a few houses above us and then all the way down to the corner of Guilford. And so those are the things I remember, the summers of the candy and hanging out with friends and riding our little bikes up and down the street. My grandfather, since after he didn't work long at that store because it got robbed and the owner got killed. And so he was retired at that point. And so he would watch us during the summer. He'd come out, he had some wooden chairs, he made some rocking chairs, and him and his buds that he used to drink with used to sit on the porch. And next door was Miss Margaret and her husband, and they would come out there and play cards and socialize and talk trash and drink a little something, something. And, and we kids remember all this, I remember all of this being really happy moments where I really didn't understand how hard my mother had to work just to stay in this one apartment. Or, I knew that my brother was very popular because he's 9 years older than me. My other brothers at my grandmother's house.
Mhm.
And so I didn't even know I had him for a little bit. I think I was about 5 and I realized I had another brother because I didn't see him that much. I just thought he was friends with Damon, my older brother. And so these are the memories of, that we had a neighbor who had this German Shepherd. And to this day, I love German Shepherds. He would walk him down and all the kids would pet him. And the dog used to sit there and let us, pull his ears and all that stuff. And when we would walk past the man's house, he had a huge glass window and the dog would keep trying to jump out and, come play with us. And so these are the things I remember. And this is as from 3 to about, I moved from there when I was about 11. And so in that time, we lost my next door neighbor. Her husband had died and he was so sweet. He used to give me candy all the time. And then we lost a couple of the older, because the neighborhood was full of kids and old people. It was like there was not a whole lot of people in between.
So this is 25th Street, right?
Yes, 25th,
Okay.
300 block of 25th Street. And so it was like, and people owned, they really want a lot of businesses there. There's more businesses now in the houses, but it was all people lived in them. Some were broken up into apartments and some were full blown houses that people lived in and had lived in for years. And so, that's what I remember. When we decided to move, it was because our apartment literally was a 1-bedroom apartment with a den kind of area. My brother lived in the living room, so the living room was really huge, and like half of it was his bedroom, and then the other half was like our living room. And my grandfather was in the den, and me and my mom were in the bedroom. And I had gotten too big to be in the bed with my mother. And she was like, no, we have to find another place or something because this is too much. Because I was a wild sleeper. And I would wake up and my hands would be all in her hair, all entwined in her hair, or my foot would be on her face.
I'm not trying to have scars from you in the morning.
Yeah. She was like, oh my gosh, you sleep so wild. I would literally wake up and like half my body would be like just on top of her. And I'm like, how's she sleep all night with me? I was like, I was a wild sleeper, which is funny because I'm hardly a wild sleeper now, but I was really wild when I was a kid. And so after, when I was about 11, she sent my brother out to find us a place. And it was a little bigger. So we got a house in Govans, which is up here by York Road.
Okay.
And then I went.
How old were you roughly when you got moved there?
I don't know how old are you when you go. I think I was 11 because I was in 6th grade, and it was like a couple of months before the end of my 6th grade year. So I think I was 11.
So from the time, so 25th was from 3
Birth.
to
Birth
11.
to 11. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you guys moved to York Road. And,
Yes.
and what are your memories of York Road?
Well, it's a little street off of York Road, and I remember being scared to death. Unlike what I experienced on 25th Street, I never really felt fear like that. I always felt like the neighborhood had the kids, and you know what I mean? You really didn't feel like something was going to happen to you. But when I moved, I had to catch the bus, and the bus is scary. So, and it always has scary people on
So
it.
this is the MTA.
The MTA, yeah. And so, the weirdest people in the world get on a bus, and they always want to sit next to you. So I'm scared of being on a bus, but I had to catch a bus. And initially, I was catching the bus because she didn't want to move me from the school. She wanted me to transfer to 7th grade, to my middle school, which was around the corner that I could walk to. And so when I would catch the bus, that was a little scary. And then there was this little man that was right at that corner where my street is, where the bus let you off, was a health center. It wasn't like Planned, I don't think it was Planned Parenthood. It was like a medical center. And the guy who used to do the maintenance there used to appear out of nowhere all the time. He's a little short, older dude, clearly in his 50s. He had like salt and pepper gray hair. And he would always try to talk to me and ask me questions or whatever. And I was trying to just get down that hill. And so didn't bother me that much when I was in middle school, because once 6th grade was done, I was going the other direction to go to middle school. I just walked to middle school. And so the fear of walking that way to Chicopin was going past that boys home, which is right, like literally a block away from the school. And so the kids used to walk around it to get to middle school. And so those kids would catcall you and say all kinds of craziness. And so that was a little scary, but that wasn't that bad because there's other ways you could get around there without it being an issue. When I got out of, are you still there? Because your screen is black.
Yeah. I'm still here. No, I'm walking into the garage.
Okay. So the middle school was great. I took to it very well. I was in the drama program, and so I was very involved and loved my teachers. I really loved the school.
What middle school, if you don't mind me asking?
Chinquapin. It's
Okay.
not there now. It's something else, some IT something. But Chinquapin Middle School. I don't know if you heard
Yeah,
of.
actually, I know. I know what that is.
Okay, so they used to have a really good drama program that used to send kids to the School of the Arts all the time. And so I got involved with that. And so middle school years were very fun. So I don't have any other like memories. I met my best friends there. Between there and church were my places to be all the time. So middle school was fun. I had joined church when I was about 7. And so my church was still down on 23rd in Guilford. And so I was very involved in my church. Then my mother joined. And so that became our like home-based church. And I was on the choir and I was in stuff. And, so I was very involved.
So that part, what kind of church? And then what's the name of the church?
It's Ebenezer Baptist Church, so it's a Christian situation. Strict Black Baptist, lots of noise, lots of shouting and all that good stuff, and singing, and then we stay in there for 2.5 hours easy. And so they had a thriving youth and young adult groups, and they, so we always were doing stuff. We were taking trips. We would do roller skating every couple of weeks. We went to amusement parks. So we were always doing stuff. And so one of my best friends was there, and then my other two best friends were at middle school. So when we got to high school, we were all together because we all went to Western. And so middle school years they're horrible now, it seems, but I don't remember them being that bad when I was in middle school.
So why were they not that bad?
Because I never felt like I was bullied more than maybe once, in a passing. We all had, when you were part of the drama group, everybody wanted to be part of the drama group. And so if you were part of the drama group, you had a little bit of leverage more so than anybody else, because that school didn't have teams. And so they had arts. And so if you were part of any of the arts groups, nobody bothered you. Nobody bothered you at all. Yeah.
So was it specifically, so the arts were the highlight of that middle school?
Yeah, we raised money for them.
Okay.
Yeah, they would charge like $1 a seat, and they have all these elementary schools would come and see our productions. Our drama teachers would give us 2 weeks to do these lines on these musicals that adults were doing, and we would have to get the notes right and sing right. And it was a lot of work. It would take us 3 months to get one show together. And then we had teachers that actually sewed all the costumes. We had people come in to do the makeup. I mean, it was a huge production. And we took an entire week off because we did like 2 shows a day. So there was an entire week that we didn't have any school when people were in the production.
Really?
And that was because our principal was like, this is making money for our school, and you're gonna let them. I just had to make sure after the shows, I went up to my teachers and got all my makeup work. But it was a pretty big deal.
Okay, and do you remember some of the productions and some of the characters, or what you did in those productions?
So we did. Oh God, I know I remember we did. Oh God, I think it's called Remembering Rosie, which is a children's play. I don't know if you know the singer. She sings Carole King. Carole King.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah,
You're So Vain.
Yes.
Yes.
That was one of the plays. And then we did a Christmas. We did How the Grinch Stole Christmas one year. And then my 8th grade year, we did Once Upon a Mattress that Carol Burnett did on Broadway. And I played the minstrel. So I was telling the story. And I had to sing and I had to memorize all these lines. And so it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
So arts in middle school was the highlight, and sort of it set the template.
Yes.
For you.
Yeah.
And do you think that was the formative part for you, and that why it is that you're centered? Why is it that you're so solid as an individual?
I think that kept me solid as an individual because it gave me joy when things at home weren't always the best. Like what was happening at home was we moved in and it was a house that had to be heated with oil. So the oil man came and took one look at my mama and decided that she was going to be his girlfriend. However, what he failed to mention was that he was married to the woman up the street. So, and I went to school with his 2 kids, right? So she found out that he had been going down to our house and put him out. And so he moved in with us. So now we got this dude. And so that whole confusion I needed an outlet, and middle school gave me what I needed to not deal with all of that, because I had to still go to school with this man's kids. You know,
And if you don't mind me asking, exactly what age were you at that point?
um, 12, 12 and 13.
So,
Because until I went to high school, because they didn't go to the same high school as me, but in those 2 years I was in middle school, I had to deal with them. And in order to, even when I went to high school, I had to walk past this woman's house to get to the bus stop, because it
and
was
so he was
Glenwood
still
was a
living
side
with
street.
you guys, but I'm saying he was still
He
living
was
with you
living
guys.
with us until my mother died,
Wow.
which I'll get to. But
60, okay. Okay.
yeah, I'll get to that. But he was living with us. And so, and hanging out with our family, going to our, family unions and stuff. My mom would go to his family stuff, and she would talk to his grandmother who basically raised him, and she would visit with her and pray with her and sing to her. And, so that it was like he had become an intricate part of our family, but I was completely, this was the time when I actually rebelled against my mother, if I could say that I actually did.
Wait, Donna, I just cut out for a second. That last part that you said, and it's going to be on the Zoom, it's going to be on the audio, but go back, go back like 30 seconds.
So when she was an intricate part of his family, he was an intricate part of our family. They weren't married, but they interacted with each other all through middle school and most of my high school years. And so I had to interact with him and his children, like when his grandmother died. His grandmother had raised him, this man, and when she died, my mother wanted to go to the funeral, and she asked me to come because she knew his kids were going to be in the car as well, because of course they're his children, and that was his grandmother. That was their grandmother. And so he had this super long, super big orange Cadillac. And thank God he did, because all three of us were
Wait,
in
wait,
the
wait.
back.
Is that his car or he rented that for the funeral?
That was his car. He always had Cadillacs. He always had Cadillacs. And so that was one of them, big orange Cadillac with white seats. And so the two of them were on this side. And then I was always as close to this window as I could possibly get. We're not saying anything to each other because we don't. It's not that his daughter was more mad than anything. His son, not so much. And they didn't bother me. They weren't malicious kids. They never did anything to me. They may have said some things in passing to their friends or whatever, whatever. But I never got any, bad anything from them. It was just that we knew that it was uncomfortable, all three of us in this car and with my mother, and they are, they think my mother broke up their marriage, which we come to find out was not the case. But anyway,
You can't
he had
drop.
been seeing
Wait,
people
hold on,
forever.
hold on that. You can't drop that. Let's use this as, so explain that part.
Well, when my mother contracted cancer the latter part of my 8th grade year, 9th grade year, and she had stage 4. And
Your mom had stage 4 breast cancer or what? Okay.
And so she had her surgery, and he appeared to be supportive and everything. And then I guess he started, staying out a little later and, coming home when he felt like it, and, all that kind of stuff. He started doing what dudes do when they're not interested as much anymore. And she confronted him about it. And he was like, I don't love you or anything like that or whatever. And so she had this interaction with him. I think we were driving from church, and then she came in the house. I was right behind her, and she just burst into tears. And I had never seen my mother cry. And like at this point, I was like 15, 16 or something, 15 years old. Whatever.
Period. So the first time you saw her cry.
I mean, outside of like church when you cry because you're emotional, but not, not because of somebody hurting her feelings. No. And so I was like, what is wrong with you? And she was like, and he said he doesn't love me and da, 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 da. And my brother, who heard her, because she was crying, like emotionally crying, came down the steps, and he says this to her. We had to have a conversation about that like a couple of years ago. But he says to her, "Why do you think he loves you when he is out all hours of the night, and he's up on this place I've seen him, and up on this place I've seen him? Of course, he's effing around with other people, right?" This is what my brother says to his mother, who was having a nervous breakdown on the sofa. And I was like, really, dude? This is what you come with? Really? So I was very upset with him for a while after that. He realizes, of course, as an older person now, that wasn't the way he was supposed to handle the situation. But, my brother had just started working at the post office. So he was doing the night shift. So he saw his car places on his way home. And that's what he was trying to tell her without, telling her what was going on. And so I don't even know why I'm telling you the story. Why did I tell you the story?
No, I'm saying, so we were talking about the.
Oh yeah, we're talking about, you tell, okay. And so
that's the first
so
time.
she knew.
Wait, Donna, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but going back to, do you remember this scenario where do you remember him missing for these periods of time? Because part of it is your brother's.
Yeah. I mean,
so was there evidence that this was the reality, that he was in this space?
Yeah, it was. And it was stressful, and she was going in and out of treatment. They were giving her all these medications that we didn't know what the stuff was. She was still trying to, in some ways, go to work because we were already financially strapped because her job didn't pay that much in the first place. When my brother got his job at the post office, it did help. My grandfather was getting Social Security, so we had a little cushion, but we knew that he was not right. I mean, I'm not talking about like he's not right in his head. It's just that we knew
but he wasn't doing the right thing.
Right, I knew that. And I knew that was going to happen because I'm like, if he cheated on his wife with somebody down the street, then you know that you're not really secure with your feelings with this person. I mean, and that's something I just kind of knew. I hadn't had a boyfriend or anything yet. I just kind of knew this. It's like, if you do it once, you're going to do it again. So, I mean, that was just my thing. I just knew. And I was like, Mom, why are you surprised? But I wasn't going to say that to her in the moment of her,
when she's
breakdown. That wasn't
a difference.
appropriate.
Yeah, that's called
appropriate.
emotional. Emotional intelligence. Your brother's a dunce because he's a dude.
Yeah, he's a dunce. He don't have a clue. And and again, when did we have this conversation? He's 62. We had it when he was 60. That's when he was like, okay, that was wrong. I'm like, anyway. But at the same time, he didn't know that Mom was still sick. He thought she had a little cancer. They cut it out. It's over. I'm the only one that went to her doctor's appointments with her all the time. I'm the only one who saw the golf ball growing out of her chest after the surgery was done, right? I'm the one that's seeing her wounds not necessarily healed, like if she get cut or something. I'm seeing all of this. I'm going to the doctor. I'm hearing everything. I knew everything that was going on. He knew nothing because he was going to work. He was trying to keep the bills up because she couldn't work. And so he was kind of displaced from it. He was working all the time. Back then, I mean, even now, at the post office, there's always overtime to be had, and he was always working. So he didn't really know. He didn't really know what was going on. But the thing was that Mr. Curley was the guy's name. He did not leave because, which I can say that was reasonably respectful, because he knew that we needed the bills paid. He could have gone with one of his other people, whatever, and he knew that she couldn't do it, and so he stayed. And it was tight up in there. So middle school and going into high school, I had to find ways outside of the house to get my peace. And so the thing that has always run through my life, if I had to have a theme, was I'm gonna have peace. My entire life. That is my whole goal, is to have peace of mind. My whole life.
Can you explain that? Because you actually hit on what I would be asking like 3 sessions down the road, is that conversation. So explain that part, because if you're saying you have that in middle school going into high school, explain that part, please.
When you're surrounded by people who are on edge, and not like in a violent way, not that they couldn't enjoy themselves or let their hair down, but I saw my mother struggle for like her entire life. For what? And I'm like, I'm not going out like that. And I knew early on that because of they said that the type of cancer she had was not only very aggressive, but it was a little on the rare-ish side at that time. 1985 is when she passed. So this was like the early 80s. And so I was like, I know this has to do with all of this in her body of having to raise children by herself, had to take care of her father, who was probably not really worth taking care of because of the stuff he had done in his past, and to her mother. And just trying to make it, right? And so I knew early I was not going to live one of them lives where I'm just going to be making it. I'm going to enjoy this trip, I may work a little bit, but in between, I'm going to enjoy this trip. I'm not playing no games with that.
When did you, I'm saying, when did that become something that was sort of a cornerstone for you?
I would say about 4th or 5th grade. I don't know how old you are in 4th or 5th grade. I went to school when I was 4, so I don't know. 9, 10, 9,
11, yeah.
Yeah. So and I spent, and when we get into my college years or whatever, it's like I'll do a bunch of stress. I'll do a bunch of crazy. I just don't. And so, that can help you see my situation with my husband. It was like there was no going back after that, because I'm not living like that. I'm not wondering where you are. I'm not going to be peeking in your phone. I'm not living like that. I'm not going to do it. So, yeah. So where we at? Middle school, high school.
So you had that template set in you. So do you think, if I were to ask you, Donna, that is this one of your cornerstone values? And sort of, if I were to ask, hey, Donna, who are you? Or is this something that you think is sort of in your essence?
Yep. I would tell you that. Yep. Absolutely.
All right. So now, because we're hitting that part, you mentioned something about what your mom saw with her father, and the fact that what she had to take care of. You explain that background, because
yeah, that's heavy, because I didn't find this out until after both of them were gone, and we were doing research on the Lambert side of the family. I went to New York to visit one of my aunts, and there had been a story about what her husband had been killed, and her husband was my grandfather's brother. And the story was that there was a guy, black man, that owned a little store in Virginia, and she had gone in there, and the man was flirting with her. He was pretty aggressive with it, and she had just married. No, maybe she hadn't just married because they had a couple of kids. So my uncle Josh, my great uncle Josh, my grandfather's brother, heard about it and went over there to confront the man. My grandfather's family, the Lamberts, ton of brothers, known to stick together, and all of them had guns and all of them knew how to shoot. And nobody messed with them. Nobody messed with them. And
Where
so
in Virginia? Where in Virginia?
Dundas, it was like Dundas, Broadnax, Virginia, which is a few miles north of North Carolina.
Okay.
About 20 miles north of North Carolina.
Okay.
And so there were the Colemans, the Taylors, and the Lamberts were all in that general area. And the Lamberts had a pretty big family, a bunch of boys and a few girls. And so I guess it was about 10 of them. And so Josh went to confront the man. And he told the man, leave my wife alone. And the man said, some words back to him. And he said, I'll be back. And he went to walk out. And the man came from behind the counter, shot him in the back, killed him.
Damn.
And but he knew he got packed up and he got out of there because he knew that those Lambert brothers was coming after him.
Okay.
Yeah, so he had to run. And so my aunt was clarifying the story, and then I was asking her some other things about it, and she just brought up all this history about the family. And she was dying. She had cancer as well, and so family members were going to see her and all of that. And she was just bringing up. And I was just writing down things, and then I called my aunt, my mother's sister, and I would ask her some stuff. And so what ended up happening is we were trying to piece together some of these things that we just didn't know about the family. And so what I ended up finding out is that my grandfather in the 1900s, and so you're familiar with colorism within the Black community.
Yes.
My grandfather was a light-skinned, handsome dude. My grandmother, beautiful, dark-skinned woman. His family did not want him to marry her because she was too dark. First problem. He did it anyway. And what was kind of going on is that his older brother was looking at her too, because she was from a prominent family out of Philadelphia, the Taylors. And they had a couple dollars. And not that the Lamberts didn't. The Lamberts they were sharecroppers, and they were country boys in the South. Philly was known to have, if you were a Black person in Philly and you had a couple dollars, you were more of on an elite status. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how she got to where she was, but they ended up getting married, and she started spitting out kids. And my grandfather thought it was his right to be a philanderer. And so he was all over the town with various people. And then he would, since he wasn't really bringing a lot of that money home because he was spending it on people, my grandmother went to work. And then he would meet her at the station when she got paid, beat her up, take her money. And then she'd have to, whatever she could grapple together to feed however many kids at the house. And she had 10 kids with my grandfather. Okay. And so this went on for a little bit until about the time. My mother is the second oldest girl, third oldest child. There were like 6 girls and 4 boys. And so they saw, the older children more so than the younger ones, saw the abuse of their mother by the hands of my father. So none of them liked him. Nobody.
So where did your mom fit in terms of age structure within those 10 kids?
She was, I think she's the third child.
Okay, so
So
basically
second,
she's one of the
second girl.
eldest.
She's one of the oldest ones.
All
Yeah.
right.
And so my grandmother finally decided she was done with him. And she grabbed the little ones that she could and ran to the car. And he said, "You gonna leave me? I'm gonna kill you before you get to do that." So he went to go get a shotgun. He was gonna kill her. And she threw them kids in the car because I think her brother or somebody had come down to pick her up. And she got away with the younger ones. But the older kids were still there. So this is like my mom, and a few of her brothers, and my oldest aunt had already gotten married. She had gotten married at like 16, 17. So she was at her own place with her husband. And so what ended up happening is that he was sharecropping. Him and a lot of the Lambert brothers were sharecropping for the judge in the area. And so when she requested a divorce, he got custody of the older kids so that they could help him in the field, the judge's field. And so in order to, so this is, all of this is stemming more like animosity from his older children, who not only witnessed the abuse, but now they can't even go to their mother because they're under 18. They got to go do whatever he say in terms of working for this dude. And so my one uncle enlisted into the army when he was 16 to get away from him. My mother and two of my other aunts went to New York. So they graduated from high school in the Bronx, New York. So they
Who
went.
who did they go to in New York?
They went to my Aunt Virgie, the one who was the one telling me the story about her husband, Uncle Josh. They went
Okay,
to still live with them.
so your aunt, that's the one that was married.
To my Uncle Josh, my great uncle Josh. They were already in New York, part of that great migration north, because they had the factory jobs and everything. And so my aunts went up there to go to high school. So they spent, I believe, 2 or 3 years there in high school, and then they got their own place. And so they were working back and forth there, which is the reason why my mom, when we started coming along, had connections up there to work, because she
Okay.
had already worked before. She had already been there. So she graduated in 1955 from a school in New York that was already integrated.
Do you know the school and what borough it was in?
It was in the Bronx.
So we can
I
save
think
this.
it's called Boys and Girls High. I think it was Boys and Girls High in the
Okay.
Bronx.
Okay.
I can always check it out because I still have her classroom.
Okay.
So I have to look for it. But so she and two of my aunts, Aunt Gloria and Aunt Marina, they all were up there. And then eventually they would come back down here. By this time, my grandfather, the other thing too was there was a woman that he was more frequent with than the others. And so he had a couple kids with her as well. And so this woman became a part of our lives because now he had these other children that were part of the family. And so when I was a kid and he would go visit this woman, at this point, they're both very old and they're just talking trash and playing cards and stuff. But I didn't realize who she was because at this point she lived off of North Avenue. Eventually everybody came from Virginia and just about, and came to Baltimore because that was the only place to work. Baltimore or Philly or New York. And so I didn't know that when I was introduced to these aunts and uncles, that they were really aunts and uncles, because I had met all my aunts and uncles, the the real ones.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I didn't really realize. They had to tell me, like, no, literally, that is his son. I'm like, oh, okay. And I didn't really know that until we had a birthday party for my grandfather. I don't know if it was his 60 or 65th birthday. And they came and they were talking about, we family and da 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 da. And I'm like, who are these people? I don't know these people. But that's how I started to see that my grandfather wasn't the loveliest person um that I thought he was. And most of that I found out after he had already passed. He had already died. That he was a whippersnapper. He was. And so it explained, like, my mother, I confronted my mother. I think I was about 7 or 8. I confronted my mother because she just did not talk to him until she had to when he was living with us. And she said, if you knew who that man was, you wouldn't talk to him either. And I'm like, but he's Papa. I didn't have any problem with him. He was the best thing going. I love Papa. And then once both of them had gone, I had talked to Virgie, and then I had interviewed my aunts, and they're like, well, they're gone now. I guess we can tell you what's going on with that. I was like, oh my gosh. And they said, we know that you and Damon love him because he was a different person to y'all. But to us, he was an evil person. He was just evil. And the stuff he did was just ridiculous. Like, I'll give you an example. My oldest aunt was Halle Berry cute. I mean, she was gorgeous. And in the country, you're walking from to and fro, whatever, and somebody tried to assault her, right?
Mhm.
And instead of getting his band of brothers, who would have, gone and got the dude, he said to her, if you weren't wearing those short skirts, it wouldn't happen. And so it was stuff like that. That's just one example that they chose to give me, right, to kind of get my perspective on who I was dealing with. But they're like, but he did that all the time. He would like have us, like his friends would be over and somebody would say, hey, how like you tell children, go give your play uncle a hug or whatever. And these little people would be copping a feel on the kids, like, stuff like that. And it's like, he tolerated this craziness on top of abusing his kids in terms of beating them and beating their mama and all that other stuff. It was like the stuff we went through at the hands of this, because of this man being in our lives, is something that you just cannot grapple with or understand, because you see the person who has become an old man and has gotten himself together a little bit and had his regrets or whatever, right? And so to this day, I still have the memory of who he is. I just know, I know more. I don't feel like it changed a whole lot of my perspective, because that's not the person I ever knew. That's who they knew. Right. But it really cleared up some behaviors between that I saw from my aunts and my uncles and their interactions with him. You could clearly tell they were tolerating him, you know. And so that's that whole family history. They were much more loving to my grandmother and taking care of my grandmother than they, were that way with him. And I remember him telling me when I was in high school, he said, your mama has every reason to be angry with me. All of my children, because I was not a good person. Right. And so that was the extent that, he told me he tried his when she died before he did. He went into a deep depression. He stopped eating. All he would do was drink, and it caused him to have a stroke. And so he died She died in July, and he died the following year, that Thanksgiving.
So she died
Yeah.
in July, what year?
85, July 4th, 85. And then he died 86, that Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Right. So I went away to college, and before I could even get back, he had passed. He had my brother, he said he was lonely at the house. And so my brother let him stay with a relative. And while he was there, he fell. And since he wasn't really eating a lot, the injury got gangrenous, and it caused him to have a stroke. And then after that, he never came out of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's pretty much through I guess about my junior
Formative years.
year. My junior year is when the summer between my senior and my junior year is when she passed. And so up through that time, she had been in the hospital an entire year. So every day after school, I would go to the hospital and see her first, visit with her, and then go home, do my homework, clean the house, whatever. And so I did that all year, up until she passed. And you know,
So can you, logistically speaking, how does that happen? Do you take a bus? Do you, what's,
she was
there you
at Union Memorial Hospital. So from where I was, I would have to take, I took a bus down York Road and just walked over right after school. So I would bring my books and stuff and tell her what I'm learning, because she would want to know. That the last like 2 months, she didn't recognize me because she was on heavy morphine. But up until then, we would have conversations. Like when I went to my junior prom, we stopped by the hospital so she could see all of us. And then the car stalled right at the entrance of the door. So we had to figure out how to get this car working so we could get to prom. But it started eventually, and we were able to go. She experienced like her last year in terms of with me, like by what I would tell her is going on. And, if there was things she had to sign, I would bring her papers so she could sign them and all that.
Wow. All right. We're gonna stop the prom of junior year.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
where we're gonna stop. And then if you're available this week, let's go from that point. So what I'm gonna do is I'll just send you the raw audio. All right. As soon as the audio is done, I'll send you
Okay.
the raw audio. I want you to go back, listen to it, and then let's go from that point on. If there are any key things that you think were missed out, then send me, hey, what are the key points, or what are the things that we need to go ahead and go back and revisit so we can encapsulate at least your life and your life story pre that 11th grade year.
Okay.
All
So
right.
what day we gonna do it?
Yeah, Donna, you and I have the same schedule. So,
No,
I ain't going
no,
anywhere this week.
I
So
got a PG&E installation on Tuesday, and that's gonna be loud. So I know it's probably not the best
Yeah.
day.
just no. I'm saying just think about it. Let me render the audio, and then
Okay.
let's that point, and you just tell me whenever you're available. We'll make it work. All right.
Okay. All right.
But that way we can. So and then from that point we can go. So ideally speaking, I think from 11th grade to your senior year in college. Let's target that.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
That's
Beautiful. All right, sis. All right.
Dude,
Much love.
I know that was a lot. I know that was a
Oh,
lot.
and listen, I'm gonna go back and listen to this tomorrow because I'm not processing.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Not even a lot, man. I mean, this is unreal shit, man. So
Yeah.
it's a lot.
So
But I want you to go
imagine
back.
living it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. You need to go back and listen to it, and whatever we missed for that period, I also want to capture that. And that's the part that we have a responsibility to capture, because this is your legacy. All right. So All right. So we'll do that. All right. Now I'll send you the link as soon as it's available.
Cool, dude.
All right, sis. Much love. And again,
What's
Donna,
up?
you need to understand how ridiculous of a person you are. It's a blessing to have someone like you, within my life, and it's just know how amazing you are as a person. But your story is beyond anything that's quantifiable. So just know that. All right. Now I appreciate
Thank
you.
you. I
You
feel
are
the same about
beyond-
you. You haven't told me everything about your journey either. And so
Listen,
I'd love to hear your
my journey ain't shit, man.
Yes,
Look,
it is.
it's just, you're an amazing woman, and now that look, we just caught up on multiple things.
Yeah.
We got to talk about some other stuff, so I'll hit you up on that other stuff. But you're an amazing woman. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So
I
just keep
holler
it up.
at you soon. We're
All
gonna
right,
we gonna
much love.
figure out when we're gonna holler at when you finish the video. I mean, when you
Yeah.
finish the audio.
Yes,
We'll
ma'am.
talk. Okay.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. I appreciate you.
Bye.
All right.
You
Bye-bye.
too.
Okay.